Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every Thursday, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today was born in Illinois but grew up in Detroit. As a child, she mainly played basketball and was captain of her team and named All-City and All-State with plans of playing basketball in the Olympics, but her knees disagreed with that. After high school, she got involved in martial arts and in 1988 won gold medal in Seoul, Korea, as an Olympian again in 1992 and took home the bronze. In the mid-90s, she appeared on a TV show that many of my listeners are familiar with, WMAC Masters. She currently teaches at Andrews Air Force Base and Bolling Air Force Base, as well as some community rec programs. In her free time, she loves to travel with family and friends and play golf. Please welcome my guest today, Miss Lynnette Love. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
I appreciate your time. So what we like to do at the very beginning, I want to jump into it and find out obviously I talked a little bit about it after high school, but what led to you getting involved in martial arts? Where did that first spark come from that started your interest down that pathway?
It was the strangest thing because my goal initially was to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And through that process of realizing I didn't know if my knees would hold up. And I don't even think it was that, up front for me. I think it was just that I was in pain and I was going to go to college. And so I needed to do something to stay in shape while I was in college. And so I kind of figured out since I wouldn't be playing basketball because I didn't choose one of the colleges that were offering me a scholarship, because that would have entailed me having to live on campus, which I wasn't really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go to a local school, Wayne State University, and that way I could still live at home. And I just needed something to stay in shape. And I remember going past a martial arts school, and there was this school that was probably a block long. I mean, it was a huge school.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, let me go in there and see how everything's going. And, I went in there, I talked to some people, I asked, could I watch a class? And, I kind of got this feel like, well, until you join, you can't watch classes. And I thought that was kind of strange.
Really? Okay.
So I left there. And then I went to this little small school, maybe in the same area, and I did class for about a month. And I think the whole month, all I learned to do was punch.
Okay.
And I was kind of thinking, well, that wasn't fun. So I think I kind of gave up the search and just, said, let me go to college. And I happened to go past the school. The door was open. It was a nice summer day. And I saw these people doing just everything, jump kicks and all of that. And I go, now that looks like fun. And I went in there. And the instructor comes out. Now, I'm 6'3". The instructor was about 5'1". And he comes out, and literally when you walk in, there's not really a lobby. There is maybe 4 feet before you're on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just stood there watching, and he said, are you interested? I said, yeah, I think I want to try this. And he goes, well, why do you want to try it? And I didn't have an answer for that. I don't know. Looks kind of interesting. He said, okay, well, if you want to try, just come back, bring $21. It was $21 a month, the strangest amount. And I think what I liked about it was that he wasn't pressuring me. He wasn't, it wasn't, because martial arts schools can be intimidating to come in for a child
Definitely.
Or an adult, anybody, because, you're looking at them do these things that, you can't necessarily do right away. And I said, okay. And I just had this good, relaxed feeling. And I believe within a week, I came back with $21.
Nice. So before that, now, did you know anything at all about martial arts, or kind of what was your experience? I mean, had you watched martial arts movies, or was it completely new to you?
It was completely new to me. In fact, my school, I went to Cass Tech High.
Mm-hmm.
And my school they had all kinds of clubs, golf clubs, track clubs, every club, you could say swim clubs. And I was so busy playing basketball, none of those clubs interest me. And I used to watch these guys in this martial arts club, and they walk around barefoot and I guess go do whatever they do.
Hmm.
And it was like a cult to me. I was like, oh, that looks kind of strange. They don't have any shoes on. What are they doing? So I wasn't even curious about it. Like
Right.
I could care less. It was probably if somebody had said, oh, you should check that out, I probably said, no, I don't want to do it.
So then think about some of those first few classes. What are some things you remember, some stuff you did in those first few classes?
I remember stretching, which was not my forte because when I played basketball, then all we did was run and jump. Now, basketball teams now they do lots of stretching because they realize that they need to for their knees.
Yep.
But when I was playing, it was just running and jumping, so it was really hard on our knees. So we did lots of stretching, and I remember it was just not something that I could do well.
Hmm.
And it seemed that everybody in there was, of course, much smaller than me. Probably I was the tallest one.
Hmm.
And, but I didn't really feel awkward. And it wasn't a huge place where, you just felt like you didn't belong. It was very welcoming. It seemed like everybody kind of said hi to you. And I think there was two women that I saw.
Okay.
One was Asian, two women, and maybe 25 guys.
Wow.
And the women were doing forms, but the guys were sparring. And I looked at the forms, I go, I'm not doing that. And I looked at the sparring, and I go, that looks like fun.
Nice. Okay.
And so, of course, for the first 3 or 4 months, you don't do any of that. You're just doing learning basic kicks, learning
Right.
basic punching and blocking. But eventually, I remember telling my instructor, I want to spar. And he said later on, the reason why he agreed was because I was so tall that he figured I would be okay. I wouldn't get hurt.
Hmm.
So that was why he was like, okay, oh, sure.
Yeah, I imagine that's got to be an advantage, especially with kicks being taller and having the longer legs. That's got to be nice.
Well, you know what though? I don't think necessarily just with that it is, because when you're tall, you're kicking long. So that means, yeah, you can keep somebody away, but you have to be fast enough to get those kicks off before they can get inside. Because once they're inside, now the disadvantage is on you because you can't kick short.
Very true.
So I learned that as I got better and better in martial arts, I realized that it wasn't just about being tall. I couldn't sit on that. Like I had to develop some short kicking skills as well as some long kicking skills to be successful.
So then at what belt level did competition start for you? When was your first tournament?
My first tournament was at black belt. So we had competitions within the school. And then my instructor
Oh.
also taught at University of Maryland. Whenever we test, the test would be at not University of Maryland, University of Michigan.
Okay.
So whenever we test, we had to drive there. So that was my first ballot competition. That was
Really?
first time sparring with people I didn't know.
Wow. That's a long
what
ways
I
to wait.
realized, yeah. And what I realized, our Detroit school, we were good at sparring.
Mhm.
It was that inner city mentality. But University of Michigan was really good at forms, and we were horrible at forms. I started to see that difference as we would go there to test. When they said sparring, I would just light up. Okay, let's go. They said forms. I was like, okay, let me just do what I have to do so I can pass to the next belt. So competition as a black belt, my instructor, I remember he told me, I used to keep my uniform in the car all the time because I was at that school 6 to 7 days a week. I lived it. Once I got in there and realized how much I loved it, it became a really big part of me. And I remember my instructor said to me one day, he said, I need you to bring 4 of the guys to a competition that's going to be held in Akron, Ohio, 4 hours away. I was the only one that had a car.
Okay.
So he said, can you bring them? I said, sure. And that morning, I got every excuse in the book. One guy said his mother wouldn't let him go. The other one said he broke his leg. The other one said, no, I don't. I mean, I was like, what? So I kind of thought for a minute. I said, you know what? I better drive up there and let him know that they don't want to come. I don't want him to think that it's because I didn't bring them.
Right.
And I think I was kind of curious too, like what is this about here? So I drove up there by myself. And I go in there and I said, Master Chung, none of the guys came because, they said they couldn't come or something happened. He goes, well, it's okay. He goes, why don't you change and compete? And I was like, what? Like, what in the world? I said, okay. I said, and you don't usually question your instructor. It was just like, okay, let's do it.
Yes,
So
sir.
I go and get my uniform out the car. and I go and compete, and it's women's heavyweight, which at that time was 157 and over. And because of my height, that I barely made that, because I was tall and thin.
Mm-hmm.
And I competed and I won. And his excitement was over the top. Like, I just figured, okay, I won and I beat somebody. Okay. But I later found out that that was the nationals, and the girl I beat was the one that was on the national team the previous year.
Oh, wow. He never told you that? Wow.
Never told me that. So he
Okay.
had me running around the gym like a lunatic. Like he was just like, just keep running, because I guess I had another fight. I didn't know what was going on. I was just doing what he told me. And after the other fight, I won. And then they make this announcement that all first place winners will be going to China this year. And before, they would just pay for men, but they were paying for men and women.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I was in shock. I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I was going to another country.
So did he ever tell you why he kept it a secret? Did he think maybe you'd get too nervous?
He never said anything.
Okay.
I think I think the shock of it all for him was, and the excitement. He was just, I think when we went back to the school, he was talking to the school and he goes, sometimes things don't go as planned. He goes, and then he said, Lynnette was there. She didn't have to come, but she came anyway to let me know that nobody else was coming, and she competed and she won. And so that was his speech, like sometimes you have to be ready just in case.
What was it like going to China then for the first time?
That was unreal, because first my school decided to do a fundraiser because I had no money, and I was like going to China, and my mother was like, okay, we can get you to LA, because they were paying for our flight from LA to China and back to LA.
Mm-hmm.
So, my mother's like, okay, we got to figure out how to get you to LA. My sister at the time was living in California. So my school raised about $300 for me to take, so I'd have some money in my pocket. My mother got bus tickets for me round trip to LA and back.
Oh, wow.
And right, can you imagine? And she
Yeah.
figured my sisters being in LA could come back with me on the bus, because I think we were having a family reunion right after that. So, I was so excited at 21, a 3-day trip is like, you don't even know it's happening.
Right.
You're just riding. The excitement of going there was so far past 3 days, I could care less. And I remember going to China, and I had braids in my hair because it was so hot. I didn't want to have to do my hair. And I remember the Chinese girls coming up and filling my hair and just standing with me because I was so tall. And it was just, the whole trip was amazing. Yeah. I learned so much just being there about just people in general.
What an
It was wonderful.
experience. So cool. So I have to ask, because
Yeah.
I'm also a Taekwondo practitioner. So
Uh-huh.
which style of Taekwondo, like which Kwon was it under, if you remember, and which forms did you guys do?
Well, I was Kangdu Kwon starting out. Now we're Olympic style now.
Mhm.
All of that Kwon stuff is kind of the roots, but it doesn't really kind of describe the art anymore.
Right.
And I was under a World Taekwondo Federation. So we did, then when we were Kangdu Kwon, we did like Basabe, No High,
Okay.
different forms. I'm trying to think, Kangdu Kwon, Chung Kwon, because my instructor was, the title of his school was Karate Kung Fu.
Okay.
So we were doing half karate forms and half kung fu.
Oh, nice.
And I think everybody that, as I was on the team longer, trained with, everybody was coming from different styles, Chung De Kwan, Mu De Kwan.
Yep.
But eventually it all became Olympic style Taekwondo, and all the forms changed over to Taegu forms and Pagway forms.
Yep. Yeah, my school does the Pagway forms. We still do them. We've never adopted the Taegu. I'm not a fan of them. I've been doing.
I'm not either, but I teach now. I teach
Yep.
my students the Taegu and the Pagway form. So
you still teach the Pagway?
They have to do.
Nice.
Yep, they have to do 16 forms.
Nice. Okay.
Make up a form. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I've been doing the Pagway since '92 when I started. Yeah. My first school was actually Muduk Kwan Tung Sudo when I was 10 back in '84, and then my Taekwondo school when I was first in, we were trying to remember because we switched. I think we were first we were Songmu Kwan, and then we switched to Chungmu Kwan at one point.
Okay.
There was some political stuff that happened, and they switched Kwans. And everything. But
yeah.
And we do the Olympic style too, but we still do the Pagway forms, and we still do. Yeah. It's a traditional school, but we do the competitions and stuff too. So then, how'd you do in China?
I won first place.
Nice.
And After that, I was hooked. I said, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. I didn't, of course, not the Olympics because there was no taekwondo in the Olympics, but I
Right.
was like, I'm hooked. I would. And so I came back, and you know what happens. You win a competition, you're like, the grade is okay. You
Yep.
go to a local competition. I go to a karate competition. Now, our sport was full contact.
Mm-hmm.
So you could kick and hit the person. That's how you scored.
Yep.
I can go to a local competition and it's point.
A little
I don't
different.
know anything about point.
Yep.
So I go in the competition. I'm fighting this girl that's probably 5'3", 5'4". And she gets close to me and gets points and beats me like 5-1. And I sit there and I bawl. I'm like devastated. Like, what the heck? I go back to my school and I'm talking to one of the instructors. He said, first of all, there are different martial arts. You cannot go from one style to the other and expect to do as well because the rules are different. He said, we don't punch to the face, but when you go to point, they can punch at the face. And if it's close enough, they're going to get a point.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so that's a lesson learned that you have to understand there are different styles. And if you want to be successful in martial arts, stay in one style. And that was the last time I went to a point competition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then at what point did you start hearing talk that Taekwondo might be in the Olympics? Like how long was it when you first heard about it to when the official announcement came and you thought it was
Okay, so
going to be a reality?
I started Taekwondo in 1975. I got my black belt in 1979.
Okay.
In 82, 83, I was getting frustrated because every year we'd go to nationals. I would win nationals, but every year they didn't necessarily have competition for women anywhere. And, I was getting frustrated. Like, every year the guys compete just like we do at nationals, and they're always going somewhere. But there's not a whole lot of competition for women. Little did I know it was because other countries didn't have women's teams. It wasn't USA because we had one. And it took them time to build that up. I went to my instructor. I said, I think I'm going to quit. I said, this isn't, it's not fair. And my instructor says to me, if you quit, they won't change. If you stay, they have to.
Nice.
Most profound thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's cool.
But the fact that he said that kind of made me look at it differently. The next year, I think he knew already that Taekwondo was going to be in the Olympics, but I think he wanted me to stay because I wanted to stay. So the next year in 84, I'm watching the Olympic Games in LA. I forget who was on the medal stand, but I remember looking at this like 7-inch TV in my mother's kitchen. Somebody's on the stand and I'm sitting there in tears and I go, wow, I'd love to be on the medal stand one day. But Taekwondo's not in the Olympics, so I know that's not going to happen. That next year, 1985, they announced it was going to be in the Olympics. Well, then I had a new plan. I go, well, I've been on the team all this time. There's no point in me quitting now. So I was ready. I felt like it was something with that, watching that medal ceremony that catapulted me into, I'll be there. And I just went head on. And I just said, I got to do this. And I think that was the same year I moved to New York because when I graduated from college, I graduated in speech and theater.
Oh, cool.
And lo and behold, I had no idea, like, why did I go speech and theater? What is that going to help me with, But I moved to New York to train with Ep88 dance. I wanted to get some training there and I wanted to pursue my acting. But when I moved there, and I realized I couldn't split my time between Taekwondo and theater and dance or any of that. I had to kind of stay on this Taekwondo thing. So my decision was made because I said, if I become a famous dancer, I'll just be a dancer in a company. And I said, if I become a gold medalist, they'll know my name. And that's how I decided I wanted to do Taekwondo full time. So I stopped all the dancing, stopped all of that, and decided to train full on. And there was a really good friend of my instructors who had a gymnasium there in Jersey City. And he said, look, go there and train after you work every day. And that's what I did for the whole year I was there. I trained with him.
Okay.
But then plans changed because he had nobody for me to train with at that level. And so I had to get another plan. I noticed every nationals out of the 16 team members, 8 men and 8 women that made the team, 4 of them were from Howard University. I go, that's got to be a place to train at because if you got those kind of odds, must be a lot of people there. So I talked to my instructor. He called Professor Young, who was running the Taekwondo program there, who's also running the judo program at Howard University. And he said, come on down. And lo and behold, I had no idea it was the Mecca it was. I mean, he had people from Ivory Coast. He had people from Senegal. He had people from all over African countries and in America. There was, on a bad day, there were 20 people training.
Wow.
And I think it was the best time for me to go because I had already been winning and already been at top in that sport. So it wasn't as intimidating. Had I walked in there as a white belt, oh, I would have turned around.
Hmm.
There was no mercy there. Like, you spar. And if you get hurt, they're like, well, go sit down because we're trying to train here. And it was that diehard. And you fought, it was men and women training together, and you sparred them, and they sparred you, and they kicked you, and it hurt. But you just stuck it out because if you could handle that, competition would be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And we train every evening. I go to Howard University and train for 2 or 3 hours. And on the weekends, you go to Professor Young's school. He had a Taekwondo school, and we trained there. So there was no break.
Wow.
And every now and then I try to, oh, I'm sick, I don't feel well. And, you get somebody calling you, go get up. We don't care. You got to go. So that was, to me, the second beginning of getting to getting that competition level up so high that it was hard to kind of penetrate through.
And then how long before the Olympics were the Olympic trials? How long of a span is that once they pick the team?
Let's see. I moved here in 85 and started training with Howard. 88, May or June were the Olympic trials.
Oh, that close to the Olympics? Wow.
Oh, yeah, because they wanted the best. They wanted to make sure you were still in shape. So the closer they put it, they knew you only had a short time. So once we had the Olympic trials, and they might have been June or July. No, June, I believe. They gave us 2 weeks to go home and get our stuff and go to the Olympic Training Center.
Wow. That's crazy.
And then you had to stay there for about 6 weeks. And immediately we went on Korean time. So Korea is 12 hours difference from Colorado. So we had to wake up at 12 midnight.
Jeez.
And they would, the cafeteria would leave things that are refrigerated, like yogurts, milk, cold cereal, stuff like that, because the cafeteria was closed, but they knew we had to eat. So that was the way they would leave breakfast out for us. So we couldn't do hot breakfasts.
Wow.
And because I remember one time at midnight sitting there stretching, I go, what the heck am I doing? Like, I could be home being like a normal person, and I'm sitting on this floor stretching. What the? But it was like you were on this train and you didn't want to get off because it was just getting stronger and faster.
Mm-hmm.
And once we trained there for about 6 weeks, we flew to Korea before the Olympic Training Center opened and stayed at Yangsan Army Base and trained there for another month.
Oh, wow.
By the time we got to compete, or by the time we went to the Olympic Village, and we were the first group there because nobody else was there, it was like vacant.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was really not, by the time we went past, it was just a whole different thing. But when we competed, we remember we heard more Americans from the Army base than we did Koreans cheering for us.
Nice.
Because we had been there and made so many friends and, just really had a good time. Yeah.
So what was that? Just talk a little bit about that experience and the actual Olympic competition itself. What some of the people you competed against and what the level of competition was like.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, the opening ceremonies was the mind-blowing experience because I'm sitting there talking to Edwin Moses, who's been on the Olympics already twice. Mm-hmm. Just being there and looking at these people going, oh my God, these are people that I see play all day. And I'm like, stand here. And you didn't want to say, can I have your autograph? Because you're like on the same field, so to speak. You're just admiring them. And you got Jackie Joyner-Kersee.
Oh, wow.
And I remember she was sitting outside of the gates. And I go, aren't you Jackie Joyner-Kersee? She goes, I go, how come you're not going inside? I lost my ID. I go, are you kidding me? They don't know who you are. Wow. But this is how tight security was at the Olympic Village. Wow. If you didn't have your credentials, you couldn't get in.
That's crazy.
And I mean, you're there with there's FloJo. Mm-hmm. It was that was mind blowing in itself. So when we get to our competition, we're the first 4 days. So the day of opening ceremonies, we had 4 people that were competing that day. They didn't walk in open ceremonies because it would have been too much. Mm-hmm. They had to compete that day. So they sat in the audience in the stadium. But I couldn't have missed that because, it's your first opening ceremony. You don't even know if you're going to do that again.
Yep.
And competition, I mean, it was fierce because then our scoring was, you had 4 corner referees and a center referee. The 4 corner referees have a piece of paper. They're writing points down as they see them. So if 2 referees have 3 points, 1 referee has 1, and 1 referee has 4, you get 1 point.
Wow.
All the referees, it was the majority it had to be where all referees had to agree on the point. So and it was very subjective because they're writing this down. Hell, they could make up anything. They give it to the center referee. The center referee looks at it, counts, and then tells them how many points to put up.
Hmm.
So that in itself, I mean, we were used to it because every competition we went to, that's how they scored.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, you're in Korea. It's the Taekwondo is the first is being introduced there, and we know the politics already. So the first day we were able to get, I believe Arlene Lemus got a gold medal. Dana He, I'm not sure if she was second, but I know we came away with a gold and a bronze and maybe two golds that day. Very unexpected from Korea. Korea had no idea. So our Olympic coach competed in that same gymnasium when he was a competitor.
Oh, wow.
His goal was to go back there and beat them at their own game. So the second day, I believe the second day was when I fought. And I think the women got two golds. Dana might have got it the same day I did. And I got a gold. Now, the psychology of competing at the Olympic Games is unbelievable. It's way more than, I mean, you watch the Olympics, I watch the Olympics, and I only know because I've been there. But what people see is nothing like what it is. Because first, when you get there, each host country gets to do certain things.
Hmm.
So they can change the game at any point, not necessarily the rules, but kind of how the game is played. And so the first thing they did was, okay, well, you're heavyweight, so you have to wear a size 5 chest protector. So the numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the
Hmm.
bigger or taller you are, the bigger the chest protector. So instead of you wear the chest protector that you feel comfortable with, because, I have all legs.
Hmm.
So I don't really need a bigger chest protector
Right.
because that just cuts my legs off. So they had already made the rule, you're heavyweight, you got to wear number 5. So we're
Wow.
looking at him like, are you serious? What? And my instructor goes, Lynnette, it's okay. Don't let them see you be bothered by this. So right before you're going out in the ring to fight, you go in this room that is probably the size of a large bathroom. You're in there with your coach, your competitors in there with their coach. Serious mind game, because you're sitting there
Hmm.
going, there's no place else you can look except for at your opponent. Who else you gonna look at? And you're in there. And so my first match, I think I was totally out of my body. I don't remember a thing. All I remember is my instructor, who was the manager of the team then, coming by and punching me in the chest and going, wake up. And I think I burst out in tears. And I think the coach said, leave her alone or something like that. I mean, because the stage is too big. And so my first fight was in Mexico, and the score was 0-0, but I won because I attacked the most. So whenever there was a tie, the center referee decides based on the person who's most aggressive.
Okay.
The second match, it was with Germany, and Germany I fought her before. Her name was Ute Guster. She was my height, but she was really fit.
Okay.
And I beat her, I think, 1-0. Now, of course, like I said, the way they write down scores, who knows what the score was really. But
Right.
so the third fight was the final fight with Korea. Now, this is the match of the time. So we're in the room. My coach goes to in front of her and goes, too small, and comes back to me. And I'm thinking to myself, are you trying to get me killed? What in the hell are you, what? How did you just go up to her and say too small? I don't understand what's happening. So I'm like, oh, think about pressure. Okay, great. So I had fought her twice. I beat her at World Championships. I was favored to win because I beat her at World Championships the year before. And I also beat her at the 1985 World Championships. But Korea was training, and my coach had told me she's going to be training to do spin kicks because her goal is going to be to knock you out. That's the only
Hmm.
way she's going to win. So I want you to develop push kick. So every time she gets ready to spin, you push her and she falls down. Because if they fall down, automatically it's a point. You can be subjective. If I push her and she kind of falls back but doesn't fall down, they can say, oh, it wasn't a point.
Hmm.
But if they hit the ground, there's no question. So the
Okay.
whole time we were training, he had me train with our guy, our men's heavyweight. And I think one time I pushed Jimmy Kim down so hard he couldn't train for 2 days. And so my coach goes, "Oh, Lynnette, good, very good." So I think it was so ingrained in me. As soon as we got in the ring, first round 0-0, second round 0-0. So now I already know what to do. She's going to be, because they're telling her, look, you're going to have to knock her out. That's the only way you're going to win. Is knock her out. So she goes to spin kick, and I could just see it very clearly. And I did push kick, and I knocked her down. They had to give me the point.
That's cool.
Then, like about 30, within another minute, she does it again. I knocked her down. Now the score is 2-0. Now it's no question. I have about 10 seconds left. And I go, the worst thing I can do is stand there and let her knock me out. So I just run around the ring like, I got 10 seconds. What you gonna do? I mean, I can't lose this. And the match is over. And that's how I won.
That's awesome.
But the press conference was something. Afterwards, you both go to the press conference. There's usually American and Korean and whoever. There was nobody there.
Really?
There was nobody that showed up. I think because Korea was like, Korea is this big country on saving face. And they were so devastated that they didn't even show up.
Wow.
And I remember the next day seeing her drag her suitcase out of the village. Because for them, second place, third place, that was nothing. If you didn't win, you lost. That's how they felt. And that's one reason why they were so good. But our women's team ended up winning 3 one silver and I think 2 or 3 bronze. So we were first place for women. The men's team, Korean men, won 7 out of 8 medals.
Oh, wow.
Our heavyweight, who's Korean American, won the gold. He was the only male that won the gold.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But man,
and that's pretty much in competitions, whenever you go against Korea, and I always said this, it's like when you go in the ring with Korea, you have to understand the score is 3-0. They're winning just when you walk in there. So if you don't knock them out or knock them down, you're not going to win because it's not set up that way. And the scoring is so subjective that there's nothing you can do about it. Because one of our guys who got silver medal, we protested because he actually kicked Korea, out the ring like a couple of times.
Wow.
But they gave him nothing.
That's not good.
Yeah. So that's how the politics has been up until 2000 when we got electronic scoring. So we got points on the Hogu where you kick on the Hogu, it automatically will score.
Right.
But prior to that, you could fight. And I think the generation up to 2000 were probably physically the best athletes because we couldn't count on electronic scoring. So, you kick and you just kept kicking and you didn't stop kicking because you don't know if you're getting a point or not. Because you don't know to the end of the round.
Yeah, because some of those systems are very not accurate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you did double kicks, spinning hook kicks, and everything we did scored 1 point. It didn't matter. If I knocked somebody out, I'm still going to get 1 point.
Wow.
But from 2000 up, you do a spinning kick, that's 3 points. If you knock them down, that's 4 points. You do a back kick, that's 4 points. So the scoring is raised for the better kicks. And so now, you want to do those kicks. Whereas before, whether I kicked in the body or the head, didn't matter. I'm only getting 1 point. So why go for the hard thing?
Right. Yeah, I think I did for judging tournaments, local tournaments. I think as a corner judge, I did one tournament ever where I did it with the pencil and paper. I did a lot of them with the flags, but I was never a fan of those because I don't like the stop points. I don't like stopping from so And then I think we finally upgraded our system to electric at our tournament, probably about little over 20 years ago. Yeah. So little easier with you just push the button, but like you said, it's still
absolutely
you have to remember to push this button if it was a turning kick, and so it's it's sometimes too the judges can make mistakes. You might only get one when you should have got two, and unfortunately there's no easy way to all you can do is try to get better, but
that's it.
So then after that, so what made you decide to try to go back again in 92?
Well, I had already said after 88, the experience was just so mind-blowing that unless I lost nationally, I was definitely going back. So I never even planned on quitting after that because that was just such a high. And before 88 was over, I knew I was going back. Beside my coach, Olympic coach, I think the hardest part was after 88, he came to us and said, I'm retiring.
Oh, okay.
And that it made me kind of double take as to, do I really want to go back? Now the coach that was going to be the Olympic coach was the guy that I trained with in New York, so I knew him well. But he wasn't my coach,
right?
And so it was a little heartbreaking. It was bittersweet, but I said, no, I'm gonna stick it out until 92, and then I'll figure it out. Now I would have gone to 96. At the point. So in 88, the day after competition, I turned 32.
Okay.
96, I turned 36. 92, I'm sorry, I turned 36. So I was one of the older athletes
Hmm.
because I had been training for like 10 years before the Olympics came around.
Right.
We probably had the oldest team because we had about four members that were in their late 20s, early 30s.
Wow.
And we didn't get into martial arts for the Olympics. We got into it just because we loved it. And then the Olympics happened to come and we were like, hey, let's just stay here. So, yeah, it was a little bit different. Whereas now, your average athlete is anywhere from 16, 17 to maybe 24, 25.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, yeah. And when we found out in 96, for whatever reason, America was not going to have taekwondo. They decided to bring in baseball,
Hmm.
and I forget what the other sport was. And then that just made my decision because I go, well, there's no way I'm going to 2000.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I guess I'm retiring. So yeah. And I think it was different. It was different. My body was feeling it a little bit more. In 88, if you told me to fly, I could fly. 92, I was like, I'm not doing that. I already know I can fly, so I don't need to do that.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a little bit different.
Nice. So then, to back up a little, at what level and when did teaching become something that you realized that you were good at and enjoyed and wanted to continue to do?
Oh, I never wanted to teach.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I never wanted to teach. I used to say that teachers are people that didn't make it in their field, so they became teachers. That's what I used to say. Now, my mother was a teacher, mind you. I don't know why I said that. But that's what I said. I was like, they couldn't be competitors. That's why they became teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my instructor asked me to teach a self-defense class at the YWCA one year or one summer. I didn't really want to do that. I was like, who wants to do self-defense? If they can't run, what's the point? How you going to defend yourself? It was totally against what I wanted to do. And I went there and I taught it for a summer and I was miserable. I go, I'm not going to teach again. But after 88, it was like a way to make money because for our sport, the only way to make money was to have a school.
Mm-hmm.
And so myself and Deborah Holloway, who was living here in DC, had been living here all her life, who won a silver medal in 88, we were like, hey, let's open up a school. And we were able to get funding from Bank of America and open up a school. And did really well for probably about 10 years, really well.
Okay.
But the problem was, I remember I was going back to compete. So, when you have a school, students come for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wasn't there half the time because I was still competing. And it put a lot on Deborah Holloway,
Right.
who last minute decided, hey, I think I'm going to come back and compete. So needless to say, the focus left from the school and kind of went back to competition. That's a hard thing to do when you started a business.
Right.
And we go back to 92 trials and Deborah Holloway goes out there and I think she had maybe taken a couple of years off. So she might have started training and realized, okay, I'm going to go back in 90, part of 90. She goes out there and gets knocked out. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my gosh. So everybody that I was on the team with in 88 goes back to compete to try to make the team again.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed nobody is winning. And I said, I hope I'm not the only one from the 88 team. Well, it turns out I ended up being for the women. Now, for the men, it was different. We did have two of the guys, one that I trained with, that repeated. But for the women's team, I was the only returning one. And then there were three new ones. And for 92, competition got tougher because in 88, we took all of our divisions. 8 men and 7 women, because we had one guy's division that never placed at World Championships, and that's how they decided who would represent. If you placed at World Championships, your division was there. If you didn't place at World Championships, your division wasn't there. They would take another country. 92, they decided we're not going to take thin fly, bantam, feather, light, welter, middle, heavy. We're going to take thin fly. It's going to now become one division. Bantam feather is going to now become one division. So instead of 8, there are 4. So that meant all the competitors who were champions in their respective divisions had to go up or down.
Wow.
In order to qualify. So now you got a smaller playing field and you got probably more athletes because now this is the second Olympics and everybody's on board with it. Before it was like, let's see how this works,
Mm-hmm.
So it was crazy because we had, unfortunately we had teammates fighting against each other because they're trying to get that spot.
Dang. Yeah, I know. Because I also, about a year ago, I interviewed Herb Perez was a guest on my show. So you're my second gold medalist I've had on the show, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then thinking back, you started teaching, you had a school, and then obviously you went back to competition, and since
Right.
then you've started teaching again. What do you think's changed about your teaching style over the years?
Oh, well,
From that first time when you hated it, didn't want to do it, to now.
well, number one, I've been able to make a very good living teaching classes without a school. I teach like at Andrews Air Force Base.
Hmm.
I teach at Bolling Air Force Base. I teach at some after school programs. And when I first started teaching, I was trying to make everybody an Olympian.
Right.
Okay, we're going to do 100 push ups. Let's go. All right, what are you talking about? You're tired. What? Keep going. And you look, and I started wondering, like, why are people leaving? Then I
Okay.
said, okay, you can't teach them. You're at a whole different level here. So I had to kind of dial that down and realize most of these people that come to do martial arts are never going to be competitors because they don't want to. They're
Mhm.
coming because you're here and you're teaching them and they just want to have fun.
Right.
That was the hardest thing for me to do. But over the years, it's been easiest because that was, I was still training teams. I had teams competing and I was taking junior teams and senior teams to competition after I competed for at least 20 years. And I got to the point where I just gave that to one of my black belts. I was like, oh, I can't go to another tournament. I can't do it. I got to the point where I didn't even enjoy it anymore. I had done it too much. I was burnt out.
Okay.
I've learned now that the joy now is I teach people that come back after college, after having families, say hi, and they say how that experience helped them through college, helped them through life. And it's just I can see every day I see students get better, see students grow, become a better person. And that's really the joy for me of teaching, where
Nice.
I didn't find joy in something like that before.
Great answer. I like that. So what led to you appearing on some episodes of WMAC Masters? How did that come about?
I think that was Herb Perez. I think they threw
Okay.
out some women's names, and Herb Perez was like, why don't you get Lynnette Love? And that's how I ended up there. And that was it was a really lonely time for me because when I went there, they had me come there for about 2 to 3 weeks.
Hmm.
And the first week, they weren't ready to have me practice my scene and shoot my scene. So they, put me up in a hotel, gave me per diem. So I was like in Florida in this hotel, not really doing anything.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I remember getting so bored that I called a friend of mine who lived like a 5-hour drive away and said, look, why don't you come up here and stay for 4 or 5 days? Because I was like, this is crazy. Then maybe about 2 days after she got there, which was 7 or 8 days in, they decided to choreograph my scene. And so we practiced for about 3 or 4 days, and then we filmed it for about 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
I loved that show. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
my
And then I
early
remember,
20s. So much
I
fun.
think Hacking.
Yep. Hakeem Alston. Yep.
Yeah, his wife was having a baby,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
he any minute he had to leave, and I guess they called and said, "Look, she's going to have a baby," so he had to leave, and so they were like, "Look, we need you to try on his costume. You're about the same size he is, same height."
Okay.
That was so crazy. I was like,
Wow.
"Okay, interesting,
That's
yeah,
funny. Okay. And what about
yeah."
when I was researching you to ask you to do this, I came upon this. It looks like it's a movie trying to get made called Seoul, USA. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
it's a movie that's never gotten made.
Okay.
Basically, I want to say because the person that was writing it was she went to Howard University,
Mm-hmm.
was very close to the story. And I think her letting go of the story became a problem. And, I don't know much about writing, but I know that when you write something and you put it out there, sometimes people want to buy it from you and then they want to change the way they want to put the people they want in it. And I don't
Right.
think she was willing to do that. And so that's why it still hasn't gotten made.
Any hope at all that maybe it will?
I don't think so.
Because I'm just reading about
I
it
don't
because it's
think so.
basically the story of the '88 Olympics, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it just
Absolutely. But I
looks really
think,
cool.
yeah, and I think had it been presented a different way, had some named someone got it, changed it a little bit, and picked it up, it could have been a story. And it doesn't mean that it won't be.
Yeah.
It might take one of us writing it ourselves.
Okay. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed because I think it'd be fun to see.
Absolutely.
I would definitely be there. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of getting involved in martial arts for the first time? They've never done it in their life and they're just wondering what should they look for in a school? What should they look for in an instructor?
Yeah. I think you look for a school and an instructor where they care. I believe that's how I started. If you're intimidated, that's normal. But if you go in there and they take the time to show you a little something, and kind of show you around, and you feel comfortable, like you get a good feeling, it's probably going to be a good school for you. I would suggest initially not signing a long-term contract, how they have like those 6 weeks
Mm-hmm.
for 99. That's a good start, because to go in and sign a long-term contract and you're not really sure if that's a good fit is what a lot of people do. And then they end up trying to get out of something.
Right.
So I think it has to feel good. And you want to see a couple of classes and you want to feel good about them.
Make sure they'll let you watch, huh?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
I had one like that when I lived in California in the 90s. I called a local school when I was trying to find a new school out there. And he's like, yeah, we don't allow spectators. What we teach is too secret. I'm like, what?
Oh boy.
I'm like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I would be like, well, you should keep that a secret.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
I
crazy.
don't want to know your secret. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC, and are you a fan at all?
You know what? I'm not.
Okay.
I have a lot of students of mine that have gone to MMA after doing Taekwondo. I get it. I get the draw, because
Mhm.
with full contact, the difference is you can do more things with MMA, close contact, far contact,
Right.
throws, grabs. I think it's very good realistically. Like I tell my students all the time, look, we teach self-defense, and that's realistic. But when you're doing these spinning hook kicks and all that, you're not going to do that. So I think, I'm a fan in terms of I like combative sports,
Mhm.
because I think they're very realistic, and they're more realistic than Taekwondo, karate, stuff like that.
Right.
But I'm not a fan in terms of, what they can do to your body.
Okay. All right. So who are some names that you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Bruce Lee,
Nice.
Chuck Norris.
Nice.
I heard a lot about Bill Wallace, but I never really watched him
Really?
as much. He
Mhm.
was for sure one of the top martial artists, but at that time, it was movies.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, I would go to the movie theater and watch Bruce Lee movie until they kicked me out. We would go to somebody's house and watch them over and over again.
Mhm.
I was such a fan of Bruce Lee that I would turn my lights out, hang a rope on the light thing, and practice kicking it in the dirt.
That's awesome.
I wanted to be Bruce Lee, period.
Okay.
I love the movies that they had out, like Cleopatra Jones, Christy Love.
Mhm.
It was the fascination, I think, of the movies, probably because I was in theater.
Yep.
And the reality of the actual martial arts. But top was definitely Bruce Lee. It was just the person that I wanted to be, the fluidity in his kicks, the consistency in his power, the how he could be so nice but so evil at the same time.
Yeah.
I was definitely 100% Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I think Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris are probably the two top answers
Yeah.
for that question when I ask it.
Yeah.
So, and Bill Wallace has been mentioned quite a few. I've actually been lucky enough to meet Bill Wallace one time.
And I think
Super nice.
why of course he was a great athlete, great martial arts, but he was more a point fighter.
Yeah.
And
he
because
he
I
wasn't in very
into
many
that,
movies. So.
that was it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So in all your years of martial arts, now Taekwondo has a lot of philosophies involved with it and stuff. So is there one philosophy you've learned in all your time in martial arts that really stands out for you?
Yeah, actually, it's my philosophy.
Okay.
A saying I had, and I have it actually in a book. I can't even remember the name of the book now. But it was, if I can make you think I'm King Kong, I've won the match.
Nice.
Because
okay.
I learned early on, because we give a spar somebody, and either they, in local terms, they would say, look, we're going to make super heavyweight division and just give you a medal. And it was like devastating. Like, no, I came to fight. What are you talking about? And then it would, or it would be, I would get ready to fight somebody, and the girls I was going to fight would come up to me and look at me, wow, you're tall. Oh my gosh, you're really tall. And at first it would bother me. And then I thought about it, like, oh, well, wait a minute. If that bothers them, I've already won, because they're already going to go out in the ring and be afraid.
Yep.
And so I learned that became an asset of mine.
Nice. I like
and
that.
It saved me a lot of time.
That's a cool saying. I like that. All right. I got a few fun questions to wrap it up. Do you have a favorite martial arts book?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to be writing one soon, but no.
Okay. You're not a Bruce Lee Tao of Jeet Kune Do fan?
I would get Bruce Lee books all the time, but I think I prefer his movies because I wasn't a reader.
Oh, that's okay. Now this one you might not have an answer for either. You kind of grew up in the 70s and 80s, so you might. But do you have a favorite martial arts video game? Were you ever a gamer?
Never.
Okay.
I was never a gamer.
That's about
No.
half and half of my guests. A lot of them never played games,
Yeah.
and some of them did. A few of them have been in video games. So
Right. Absolutely. I wasn't a gamer at all.
all right, this one you obviously you can't pick WMAC Masters, but do you have a favorite martial arts TV show?
It would have probably been it's TV show.
Yep.
No, because we've had many then.
Oh, there's been a lot.
I was more, it was the movies for
Mm-hmm.
me. So I didn't have, I remember though there was Cleopatra Jones, which was a TV show.
Yep.
I loved her. I did, and I watched that faithfully. And I think the other one for me was, what was it? Hornet.
Oh, Green Hornet, Bruce Lee. Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
Green Hornet.
That's a great one. I can't believe no one has said that yet.
Yeah.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah. And I
Cool.
used to watch that one Kung Fu with
David Carradine, the old one.
Yeah.
Yep, that one's been answered a lot. That seems to be a lot of people's favorite show.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So have you ever watched the new Cobra Kai?
You know what? I watched it a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I didn't get into it like a lot of people. But I'll tell you, one movie to me that was very close to the way we train and the way the Korea trained.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite movies of all times, Best of the Best.
I was actually because that's my next question. Favorite martial arts movie, and if you didn't say that one, I was going to ask you what you thought of it because it's one of my favorite movies.
Best of the Best. When I watched the Koreans train in that movie, that's exactly how they train.
Really? Okay.
That's exactly how they train, and it was it was just to watch that movie. It was so amazing. It just brought back so many memories because it's probably the one movie that was the closest to the way we did things, because even for the U.S. team, we had a psychologist come in and we would be laying on the floor and they would talk to us so that we could get mentally prepared. It was such a good movie. We all actually had jackets from that movie.
Really?
That red and blue jacket. And I'm so mad because a lot of my teammates still have theirs.
Oh.
I was one of those people that I just gave stuff away like crazy.
Man.
I have no idea where that jacket is. But the whole team had that jacket.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually just interviewed Simon Rhee about 2 months ago, who played Daehan. Mm-hmm. So he was on my show and such good stories about that and talked about the movie and stuff. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I watch it at least once a year. My 16-year-old daughter loves that movie. We watched it together. Yeah.
And there was a guy on the Korean team. I can't remember his Korean name, but we called him Cookie Monster. This guy had won 4 world championships in a row. Mm-hmm. He was unbelievable. And I want to say in '88, he was fighting Turkey, and Turkey was really damn good. It was probably about 3 or 4 inches taller than him. And I don't know what happened between them, but in the end, I think he does an axe kick and knocks him out. And I was like, what the hell? Yeah.
Nice.
And I want to say our team captain also fought him. I think it was his first or second fight, and he got axe kicked by him.
Oh wow, axe kicks are brutal, man. If you can perfect that kick, man. I was never good at it. That was one of my go-to because I would do spinning kick every now and then, and my instructor would say, "Lynnette, don't do spinning kick." My friend was great at axe kicks. I never had the flexibility like him, but he could bring that leg up next to his head and just drop it down and just wow.
And I didn't have to have that great flexibility because I was so tall.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Nice. All right, final question. Now, this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie, just in general. I know you said you like movies, so just do you have a favorite movie fight scene?
Yes, Enter the Dragon.
Ooh, great. Okay.
Enter the Dragon, the mirrors.
Oh, I love that scene. So good.
Yeah.
Such a good scene.
Yeah.
That's one I really hope they never remake that movie. That's just so good.
No, it can't be. I don't think they can't remake anything that Bruce Lee was in because there's, even, was it Jet Li?
Jet Li, yeah.
He's good,
yeah.
but it's a different, and it's something about how Bruce Lee would do something and then his face would tell what he was doing, even though you couldn't see what he was doing,
I tell you what I would like to see.
It was almost like, I'm killing you, but I don't really want to kill you, but you're making me kill you.
Exactly. I talked about this with another guest. I would love them to see, not a remake, but I would like to see them take Game of Death and redo the scenes that they did after Bruce died, where they had that like paper cutout over the guy's face, because they could do it with like CGI now and make that look really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if they ever
would. For Kareem to be in it and just whatever, do some kind of cameo appearance.
That'd be awesome. I love Kareem. I'd love to get him on my show. I've sent a few requests, but never got a response. But he'd be fun to chat with. But Lynnette, this has been so much fun. I love you're great. You are a great storyteller. Seriously, when you were talking about the Olymp, I actually got chills. It was so cool.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed this so much, and I can't wait for people to hear this episode. I'm super excited we got to do this.
Great. Well, hopefully I can get this book out soon, so you'll be able to read it too.
Definitely, yeah. You let me know when it comes out, and I'll talk about it. I'll put a link for it with my podcast and stuff. So, do you have a ETA on when it might be coming out? When you're hoping to get it out?
No, I'm hoping to have it done by June of next year.
Okay.
And so once I do that and get a publisher, I'll be good to go.
Cool. Well, I will definitely keep an eye out for it, and we'll promote the heck out of it. So
that sounds great.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.